Hello and welcome to Rule the Waves 3, playing as Japan on super large plus starting in 1890. This is episode 46 and 1921, starting with the start of year review and a year of peacetime play. Not really a spoiler there. We're gonna end it with a special feature, a battleship design special, so stay tuned for that. Let's jump in. New year means new status report. So 2021 analysis. So, you know what's been going on. We had a peace treaty last year. We took a lot of possessions in the Mediterranean, so that's a brave new world for Japan. No alliances. Spain, Italy ended. Russia, US continues. That could give me some opportunities for a little bit of conflict in the Pacific. Germany and Britain don't like each other. Surprise, surprise. They started at like 25, so post-war it went down to 9. I have a couple of nations not very happy with me. That's it, really. I'm up to 58,500 here. Great Britain is in second place with 54. I've started building another batch. Yard should have plenty to do, but we need to increase our budget because, tada, it took a massive dump after the last peace treaty. It should read minus 463,000. Actually 300 if you want it completely correct. So the growth pretty amazing, 1328 plus a bunch of extra territories. So we went up about that's 350, so 1700, but over our budget modifier nosedived from 26 to 12, and here I felt that 10 was a lot after that first World War. So but it's bound to go up in the not so distant future, so let's hang in there. This means that my build to upkeep ratio is pretty bad, even though I have reserved or mothballed a lot of stuff and halted construction, and it's not fun at all. But it'll get better. Not a lot of news here. We have 10 plus 2 battleships. We have 11 battle cruisers in service. It's 2 halted here now, so keep that in mind. 11 light cruisers, but 2 more became obsolete, so bad. My first round of 20 oil-fired destroyers are either complete or very nearly so. Research is continuing, but like I said, the 20 is much slower than the 10s. Nothing to do about that, it's just the way the game is designed. So I have 10% research. I took amphibious down to medium, so no longer any rush there. They just included the gun table for once, so we can see all the guns. So the 7-inchers that I don't use are -1. The 10-inch that I don't use are -1. The 13-inch, it seems that once you get it at -2, you never get it quality 0 or higher. I have had games where I skip the -2 and then suddenly you can get it instead of or in addition to the 11 and 12-inch. And it's actually not a bad gun, the quality 0. It can, it sits between 12 and 14, and it absolutely feels like an alternative to both. It can take the place of a slightly more potent 12-inch or a slightly less potent 14-inch, but it's a viable gun, I would say. New because aircraft are becoming more relevant in the 20s. I would say that post 25, then maybe you can call them not even good, but then they will rapidly increase in relevance. So for fighters, sort of the early game rule of thumb is having firepower 4. It's a lot more useful than firepower 3. It's not a linear progression. There's something happens around firepower 4 and you can actually start shooting down stuff. But in this case, I accepted this 3 because it was so much faster. I mean, a 1916 fighter. Maybe this can be updated to a B model or something, or just not be poor. And we will have plenty of opportunity before any new war to get a more useful fighter. Float plane scouts, it's the range that counts, but the torpedo is a fun addition, especially now that we have catapults and can actually launch them. I might do some seaplane carriers, large, with like 12, 15 aircraft. I don't know. But the important part, except from torpedoes, you only get torpedoes if you do bomb load. Is range and reliability, of course. Patrol aircraft, it's just the range, but you want them to be reliable as well. And at this stage, torpedo bombers, it's just the range, really, and reliability, kind of. Later, you can maybe wish for a little bit of speed, for example, so that they actually reach their targets. And you can wish for some toughness, or a few will survive being shot at, but yeah, it's not as important as the other stats. I think that's enough, and we can jump in and play 1921. But first, we must say hello to the Rugio. This is the first CVL that we designed. It's purpose-built. Cannot be heavier than 13,600. This is a year limitation. This rises to 16,000 eventually, pretty quickly, but yeah. I'm making it 29 knots, mostly because 30 was a lot more expensive. So I'm giving it long range, so it can stay in distant sea areas without putting a tax on our base cap. Armament is 8 single dual purpose 4-inch, 40 light AA, 20 mils. Already better protected than most real world Japanese ships in World War II. No, I'm just joking, but we have an effective, semi-effective 20 mil. 34 aircraft, that's the maximum you can have on a light carrier. No armor, that's the drawback. Spacious accommodation, of course, to go with long range. Let's build up here. It's not going to be anything special, but we need to get started on our carrier fleet. So here it is. It costs 42,500. That's not inexpensive, actually. So I could make this go slower. No, I included the image from the version with the 30 knots and medium range. I'm gonna swap that out. It's 29 and long. No other changes. So here we go. And then we can start January by actually designing it. 2 months. Okay. These are still on hold, pending a miracle, I guess. These are in the MAD. This is on foreign station. The MAD. Have anything else in Southeast Asia? Looking good. Why would I sell something to the Russians? Oh. Okay, so medium AA. It'll be a while until medium AA is very good, so can just chill. Madagascar, so 120, 140. South Pacific is 50, 60. That also fixes our rather negative focus here. Improving bases. Let's see. Djibouti is still building. Yeah. Oh, this is 60, not 50, like it says, and this is 10. 50. 140, yes, okay, yeah. And the med is... oh my god. Hello, Malta. Tell me how you do it. But yeah. We need more fortifications. Especially in those two places. Area over base overview. There we are. Alexandria has 40. Valletta needs to have 40. So expand airbase. Valletta can also have airship base. Actually, a spot where airships can be somewhat useful. Port Said. Well, Djibouti suddenly isn't so important anymore because it's in the back there. Some subs made it to the med. Okay, cool. Cute, cute. 12,000 for 10 months. That's a little rough. It's a wasted having stuff altered. Like it at all. These two we will never use again, so they get scrapped. These we can try to... and get 33, well... Oil. No. Not viable at all. You did good service, but now you are gone. Spain, why not? Yeah, when that happens, it doesn't scrap all of them. It stops where the purchase is, so you have to scrap the rest. Okay. Nagato is Sir. Guys can be all. That's a lot of mothballs, but we have to do something to keep the party going. (14-inch). Ah. Well, we need someone in the yellow anyway, so we can do this, or we could do this. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, conversion to full-size carriers, but I... Okay. Aircraft. Oh, okay. This is average, that's a plus. Bomb blow doesn't matter because they are gonna carry torpedo out to heavy. This one is the only one with longer range. Has some better speed. Maneuverability, toughness is the same, so okay. Go to the build screen. Joe. I mean, we'll build 2 because we always do things in pairs. Post-world slump. Nice at all. Let's scrap some subs. Air groups. Expand. We can recreate them later. Pretty happy with my intel, so I don't want to touch that. Research is at 10. Extra training is only academy. Do we want to change anything here? I don't think so. So we have 2. Finished building stuff in Malta. Did I start the batteries? I can't be bothered with that during peacetime, so let's push on. Good, good. I'm in no position to build any destroyers right away, so... Transverse arrestor wise. I'm not a huge fan of carrier conversions because they end up costing a lot in upkeep, and then the actual hulls are pretty old, so they start costing more because of that. And eventually you have a semi-decent carrier that's incredibly heavily armored, because I build my battle cruisers for armor, and it's not for me. Private venture, it's firepower 2 and has a worse range, so no. Sometimes you get really good stuff as private venture, but more often than not, it's just not worth your while. But this is nice, yellow. Airship base in Malta. What is your reaction? Yes, a good navy is not a provocation to war. It's the surest guarantee of peace, but it must be coupled with careful diplomacy. So we get budget and a little bit of tension, which is good. I don't think we need to be this belligerent. I could probably crush Germany quite easily. No, let's do that. Let's get them into orange. Yeah, because there is no yellow. But the budget improved, and that's important. So we're in June. Yes. Yum. Below average, poor admin, lucky is placed in command of a battleship. So why would command do this? Stuff like this make me hate the officer system because it's so much management for so little. Let's do social reforms to care for the unemployed. That's a beautiful. It is a beautiful 17-inch. Yeah. So 17-inch quality one. I think that's a dubious upgrade over 16-inch. If we get the quality 0, we might consider it. Reboot is complete. Very nice. Didn't affect my budget as much, and you can see unrest has dropped to 0. The event doesn't say, but once you've played a little bit, you will know this. Construction is 20 almost. Total expenses is half and half. Not my idea of a good time. We need to get these out of docks. I mean, this shouldn't be necessary. Release. Yay! Wow. This much. But okay. I think it increases base resources, not multiplier. So these two bad boys. Their fleet. Their fleet. Their fleet. I can reorganize the destroyers when that becomes relevant. And we also need to consider that these 900-ton destroyers, they are done. These are trade protection vessels from now on. I think we already knew what the Ramilus was, so... Germany sending a force to Norway. Should we make them back down? How much do we want them to back down? They're not allied to anyone. Maybe we can fight Germany, crush them, and then demand reparations in form of Norway, and then we can play in the North Sea. New plan taking shape. In this port, by the way. That's my home base. Why do they do this? More attention, please. Get the Navy League to protest. This is minus budget, not acceptable. This is budget intention. Okay. No, this is just... Why? Puerto Rico. Tension reduction, so it stays the same. So, and that actually concludes 1921. Hey, spying! Woohoo! Didn't notice, and we are still just in the yellow. Budget has recovered slightly. Brittany says 58. Surely you can stop in sort of the mid 60s or something. You don't really need anything bigger than, say, 65. But we're Japan, and we're obviously building the big ship. See it in the background there. 18-inch guns. I mean, we're kind of forced to do it, I would say. Of every... Line commander. Well. We can resume it. We can live with -7.5 for a year. I think that's doable. Oh, do we really have to do another brief? I suppose we have to. Welcome to the Battleship Special. I mean, battleships are big and fun and part of what makes this game so great. So I figured this was a good time to speak about their design in sort of general terms. This is not an absolute guide or anything. It's just a collection of my thoughts, I would say. What works for me, what has worked over the course of many games. I have established certain preferences and ways of doing things that work for me. So maybe you have different experiences and have different priorities, but this part should be rather familiar. Firepower, speed, protection, the sort of the triangle or the trifecta of anything big and heavily armored and heavily gunned, be it a tank or a battleship. These three sort of have to balance out because you cannot fit everything on a platform. You cannot have 12, 20-inch guns, massive protection, and 33 knots of speed on a 50,000-ton frame. That doesn't work like that. You have to decide what's important. And by firepower, what do we mean by firepower? It's not just the size of your guns and the number of them. Can you hit your target? Can you hurt your target? And provided you can hit and hurt it, how quickly can you kill it? Because this is important. If the target just limps away damaged to fight another day, that's horrible. If it gets to shoot back at you a lot, then you're gonna be damaged, maybe even sunk. So you need to hit, you need to hurt, you need to kill. And there is speed. Speed is not armor, and not in Ruler Waves 3. So speed comes down to, can you catch it? Can you maneuver for advantage? Or can you disengage if there are unfavorable conditions? So third point is protection. And again, you cannot protect everything on your ship from everything. So can you protect your vitals, your magazine spaces, your engine, that sort of thing? And can you protect your guns? Because if you start losing guns, start losing turrets, then your firepower goes down and then this all falls apart. So, design principles. These are my design principles. And Ruler Waves 3, it's a great simulation. We all love it, but it is a game. So don't assume too much based on real life. For instance, if you try to build real life ships, then sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work quite as well. For instance, you cannot build stuff with decks that are as thick as real life ships, especially when they hit 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 inches of deck armor. No, can't be done. Fewer, better ships win the race. This is a very general rule. You need to have some numbers as well, of course, but it's usually better to have 4 really good ships than 5 not quite as good ships. So, better comes down to heavier, better crew quality, including special abilities for officers, special training like gunnery, that sort of thing, and your technology. But all things being equal, well, point 2 and 3 being equal, then tonnage wins the day, provided you use it correctly. If you spend your tonnage on the wrong stuff, then it's not gonna help. You can have a 50,000 ton battleship that is badly put together, and it's not going to be more effective than a 35,000 ton battleship. Plus, it's gonna cost you more to build and more to maintain, so not a good idea. My design priorities, kind of in order here, I would say, is firepower, then more firepower, and then more firepower. You can't kill stuff, then your ship is a waste of time. Speaking of killing stuff, big guns rule the waves, pun intended, but you also need smaller guns to kill smaller enemies, be they light cruisers, destroyers, aircraft, that sort of thing. So you cannot completely forget this and just go all in on main battery. Speed, we talked briefly about it, but speed matters. The AI likes to run away like a lot. We've seen this in my this campaign and other campaigns. Unless it's pretty confident it can take you, it will run away. And if you can't catch the AI, you can't kill the AI, and that's when wars sort of stagnate. But not every unit in a fleet needs to be fast or fastest. You just need some units to be quicker than the equivalent units in the AI's inventory. For instance, if all my battleships are 23 knots, good example since they are, it's not a big concern of mine if the AI builds some ships with 24 or 25 knots of speed, because they will have a lot of battleships that are 21, 22 or 23, and then they cannot fully utilize that speed. This sounds very much like a US thinking behind the standard battleships, and yeah, it's basically the same, but 21 knots is too slow. 23 knots is okay, I think. So with a decently fast battle line and some decently fast battle cruisers, and then you have the speed element as well. Protection. You can't protect everything equally well, so protect the vitals and protect the main guns. Firepower, I just invented this, the 2HK loop. Hitting, hurting, killing. Very catchy. No, but seriously, you need to hit, you need to penetrate or hurt, and you need to kill the target as quickly as possible. Or by killing, I mean cripple it so it cannot effectively hurt you back, so it can be finished off later or sunk by torpedo carrying destroyers or whatever. So fire control and crew quality, probably way more important than pure number of tubes. Rate of fire is pretty similar for the high calibers, 14 plus inches, 14 through 17 inches, pretty similar, really, times the number of tubes. But I mean, you can rarely get more than 12 tubes anyway on a ship. 8 is sort of a minimum for me. 9 acceptable, 10 acceptable, but 12 is of course better. But trying for sort of 15 or 18, that's oh, my ship has 5 triple turrets, for instance. Nah, it's not for me. Gunnery Expert is excellent because it just increases the hit chance of everything. Rate of Fire Enthusiast is not as good. It's actually kind of bad because, yeah, you have a higher rate of fire, so a slightly higher hit chance, but you pay for that with very heavy ammunition, and going through your ammo quickly isn't necessarily a good thing. It can be good if you can leverage it to cripple or kill a target that otherwise wouldn't go down because you needed a couple extra hits, but overall the Gunnery Expert is just good. The Rate of Fire Enthusiast is just, I don't know. Don't run out of ammo. This will depend on fleet size. We're on Super Large plus, so we need more ammo than you do on Medium. On Medium, yes, you will have some large battle, but you won't find a lot of battles where you have to fight 10, 15, 20 enemy capital ships, so bear that in mind. I have some guidelines on the paper here. Some people think you can get away with slightly less. Some would say you need more than this, and it's up to you. But these are my guidelines. I would also point out that firepower is about concentration of force. So if you can concentrate your better ships in time and space upon a small portion of the enemy fleet, the classic capping of the T, then that matters probably more than everything I've gone through thus far. So tactics is a very significant element here. But if all of this comes together with rate of fire and big guns and good armor penetration technology, and you capture T and all of that, then you can achieve truly extraordinary hit chances. So pretty intuitive, really. If I have 10 ships with 10 guns shooting at just a couple of enemy ships for a few minutes, that's gonna rack up a whole lot of hits compared to if one ship duel. Hurting the target, you need big guns and armor piercing technology to pierce, because if your shots just bounce off and don't hit anything important, you hit turrets, you hit deck, you hit belt, you hit everything, conning tower, but it's just pew and it's gone, then you might as well not be there. That ship has no role unless it's specifically designed to have less firepower, but lead the division and thereby soak up as much enemy fire as possible. It's possible to sort of set up dedicated tank ships. It's not something I do often, but it's a viable tactic. Bigger guns, especially those I would say of 16 or higher inch caliber, do significantly more damage when they hit, so the structure damage keeps racking up much faster. it takes a long time to sink a 35, let alone a 50,000 ton dreadnought. That's pretty heavily armored with 14-inch guns. You can pour a lot of shots into it. If you do the same with 18, 19, 20-inch shells, it's gonna be crippled a lot faster. And not only that, the crit chance of not just doing general damage, but actually hitting something, causing a critical hit, knocking out power, engines, whatever, that's much higher for the bigger calibers. So here is the table. It just shows the basics. You need a penetration table as well, and technology, armor piercing technology, and of course the armor technology of the target ship is also relevant, but I thought I'd just include this table. You can see that rate of fire, for example, 14 inch is 9, 15, 16, 17, and 18 is 8. So although the shells weigh more, so you pay more tonnage to carry X number of shells, each broadside that you fire, provided you can mount as many guns as you do with the lower calibers, will put out a lot more firepower, which can equate to a lot higher kill chances. But remember, you have to hit. Penetrate you will do, because you are using big guns. But here we arrive at an important point. You have to pick the biggest, you should pick the biggest guns you can, because they are the best, but it has to be balanced out with the rest of the design. And it has to be this in terms of speed, protection, how much ammo you can carry, and the number of barrels you can get. I would say aim for 3 to 4 turrets, 3 triples, 4 doubles, or 2 double, 2 triple. I do that a lot. Depends on the technology, what can go into what slots, depending also on your torpedo protection level. My personal favorite, I think, is the 17-inch, because it has a certain advantage over the 16-inch. But the 16-inch is an amazing gun in its own right. And for 17, you might as well go 18 maybe. So also depends a lot on the quality guns you get. Now I have a 16-0, so I don't see any reason to pay more tonnage for a 17-1. But if I had a 17-0, I would go for that. Speed is very heavy in this game, probably heavier than real life. You can really feel that when designing destroyers. You are not going to be creating many 40-knot destroyers even late game here. So, but that's fine, it's a game. So, but anyway, it's heavy and expensive. Expensive we are not talking so much about, but it eats a lot of weight. So you sort of have to, when designing a ship, you have to always keep an eye on when does the tonnage really start to rack up for speed, and that depends on the time of year and what year you are in, and your engine techs and some other techs. So you can't build 30-knot ships early on, no matter how heavy your ship, but it can be easily done later on. And it's not always linear. You could pay quite a bit until a certain speed, and then suddenly it's fairly cheap for a few knots, and then it just goes through the roof. Like I said, you just need to be faster than the enemy's sort of average ship. VT engines should always be reliable. After that, it's optional. Don't use speedy engines on anything but destroyers and maybe some fast light cruisers. Acceleration is a factor. Every time you make a hard turn, you lose several knots of speed, especially on the big ships. So diesel engines, they accelerate a lot faster, so get them on your ships when you can, your battleships. Damage kills speed. Well, stuff that penetrate your belt or otherwise make your ship flood slows you down. Torpedoes are very bad for speed. Sometimes you get hit by a torpedo and you don't lose a single knot. Other times your speed is completely crippled. So always do maximum TPS that the Dreadnought can take. I mean, if you're designing a light cruiser, you might stop at 1 or preferably 2, but for a battleship, it's always max. Some rules of thumb taking into account the tech level and year. In this game, we basically skipped this first generation of BBs. We built the first generation of battlecruiser, but not the first generation of BB. We had some designs, but we never got around to building them because we didn't have resources. So here are my speeds, our recommendations, but you can play around with them a little bit. We are now in the SD era, the 20s Super Dreadnought era. In the 30s, we can get much faster ships. You can also get these ships with the engine techs that come in the mid-20s. You can easily get these rebuilt up to 26 if that's your thing. And you can also later rebuild these to 28 if that's your thing. So you see there's a sort of a plan here. And the same goes for the battle cruisers. Armor either protects or it doesn't, so don't try to sort of semi-protect your ship. Use as much armor as you think you need against whatever guns the enemy has. Now, if the enemy is fielding 14 now and you suspect he'll switch to 15, 16 soon, then you need to take 15, 16 into account, or at least be aware of those calibers and know that they will start penetrating you. And because they are 15, 16 inch guns, when they penetrate your ships, they will suffer more damage, will tend to get hit by critical hits, that sort of thing. So, heavy armor is the way to go. Alternatively, you could just decide that parts of your ship doesn't need to be fully protected. You could do protection against 10 inch. This will give immunity to later heavy cruisers, or just the ubiquitous 6 inch quality 0 with good AP tech. You can protect against that, because that will keep you safe from a lot of smaller attacks that can eat through structure pretty quickly. Or you could go with the 2 inch splinter protection. What's right for you? Or you could go without any protection at all. When looking at penetration tables, you need to take into account range, angle of attack, armor piercing tech, and armor tech, and some doctrinal choices. There is a lot of nuances to this. Should you go flat decked or sloped? I would say always sloped, unless the deck is very thin. If you have like an inch on the deck, then slope doesn't do much for you. So maybe you could just go with flat or whatever is the lightest for that build. Sloped or all or nothing, I would typically say sloped. It gives the best protection. All or nothing is better at protecting your overall structure, but it's a big hit box, so unless you can fully protect it, it will just get penetrated more, and then bad things will happen. I'm not sure how to best explain this, but all or nothing is great if you can guarantee that the enemy's shots won't penetrate you. But that's very hard to do against 16 plus inch weapons. So in that case, all or nothing is just worse than having sloped deck on belt. Deck extended is, as far as I know, never sloped, even if you have a sloped deck. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's a little bit less protected. The point with slope versus flat is that the slope helps the belt a little bit, and you can also get those hits that penetrate the belt but bounce off the deck. It also has a little bit of extra thickness against bomb hits. So it's heavy though, that's the drawback. Which brings us to, should you go slope narrow or slope normal? All or nothing can't be narrow, so it's always normal. Normally, of course, normal is better. It protects more. Absolutely do it if you can afford it in terms of tonnage, but often you will be presented with a choice is having good protection against peer guns and narrow, or having weak protection and normal. And having weak protection normal is pointless, so you end up taking narrow. It can be a huge, on a big ship with lots of armor, the difference between narrow and normal can be thousands of tons of armor, and that equates into so many thousand tons of displacement to compensate. And everything gets really expensive the bigger you get, so yeah. And the really important stuff is protected by the narrow belt. Yes, there will be times when you get hits that would be protected by normal, but if you had chosen normal, it's more likely that stuff will get through that normal belt because you couldn't armor it properly. So go narrow until you have tech and size and whatever that makes you able to do normal. Inclined belt, always take inclined belt if you can afford it. It costs thousands, but it weighs nothing, so it increases the effective thickness of your armor. At 14 plus inches of deck thickness, extra thickness start to not fully apply, so to speak. But inclined belt helps the effective thickness grow no matter what, so it's even more important for heavily armored ships. Same as with deck extended, I don't think belt extended is ever inclined, so slightly less protected. Some general rules. BE, DE, very important. There is a lot of critical equipment hidden behind belt extended and deck extended, so I would always armor uniformly. If you don't, you deserve to get penetrated, basically. Again, if you have 14 inches of inclined belt armor but decide to go for 10 inches of belt extended, that's probably completely wasted tonnage, because a 16-inch shell would just go right through it. So we might as well have 0. Well, not 0, but you can go back and say, I want it to be protected against 6-inch, but then you have to realize that stuff will get through. Same with deck extended. Oh, you have no rudders, sorry. Oh, your electrical power is gone. That sort of thing. Belt upper can have a role early on, the first like 15 years of the game, but after that, when the era of the close-ranged quick-fire gun, where you just have to pour as much gunfire into the target as possible and watch it just burn to the waterline, basically. The same if you jump over to this side, the same period, I would say, armoring secondary guns to the same level as belt upper can have a place, actually. We saw that during our China war, and also the subsequent war against Russia. And now, maybe controversial, but deck extended is kind of overrated. Not overrated in an absolute sense, but in terms of how heavy it is. If you want a full deck protection in this game, then you have to sacrifice so much tonnage that it's not worth it. Instead, I have more and more come over to the viewpoint, and that a thinner deck is a better deck. No, you cannot go super thin, but you should never have more than sufficient protection, like 2.5 inch for your 30s, 40s heavy cruisers, 3 inches for your battle cruisers, maybe 3.5 for your battleships, could go up to 4 for the really heavy hitters, like 70,000 ton plus battleships, if you really want to. Because you don't want to fight at maximum range, you want to fight inside the range of most plunging fire. So if stuff hits your deck, it's gonna be skip hits, so they will just glance off the deck anyway. It's not plunging, so you don't need a sticker deck. And bombing isn't that big a deal. It can be a deal. You can get crippled by bombs. You can burn up by bombs, but you have to take some risks and make some compromises. And I think that shaving off a little deck thickness is where the big savings come in. So right now, I think I'm at 2.5 inches on the battle cruisers and 3 inches on the battleships, and that will increase by 0.5 inch eventually. Yeah. Conning tower is optional. Some like it, some think it's completely wasted. I've been back and forth between those two. I have also given it just printer protection, sometimes protection against 6 inch, that sort of thing. Currently, I'm armoring it as heavily as I'm armoring my turrets, because I don't like those hits that penetrate the conning tower and knock you out of formation, kill your crew quality. No, not good. Turret top can never have too much armor, because basically losing a turret is always bad if you lose it permanently, and you can even explode if you get penetrated the wrong way. But more importantly, even a non-penetrating hit can disable your turret for some time, short or long, depends. Now, by armoring heavily, that knockout chance is somewhat reduced. But again, you have to balance it. Yeah, you would like 30 inches of armor in all your turrets, but your ship can't support that. So, secondary gun armor is 0 after the belt upper phase. But then maybe when you get into sort of triple 6-inch turrets, then we could armor them against splinters, I guess, to 2.5 inches, or go wild and armor against other 6-inch guns. I wouldn't really recommend that, but you do you. But of course, if you do heavier than 6 inches, you should definitely armor your secondary turrets, probably as well as you armor your belt or even your other turrets. Some hits can't be armored against. They will hit unarmored parts of the ship, no matter what. Those 4 aft hit, generic superstructure hit, some splinter damage here and there. Just some quick summary. Tonnage matters. Big is better. Quality over quantity. Remember to future-proof your ship so it's not obsolete when it's built. Blah, 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 blah. Make your ships bigger and thus better, with an emphasis on firepower and adequate speed and protection. And you do this by being heavier. Cannot stress that enough. Someone smarter than me, Alekan, or whoever, will probably have ways to sort of trim down a ship's size and thereby its cost, but yeah, I leave the advanced stuff to advanced users. Just a quick summary of what I do with my divisions. Basically, the lead division and the lead ship takes the most fire. You need your tanks, your toughest ships up front. That's pretty simple, really. They can also take fire better, so they don't get knocked out as quickly. So it makes sense. It also makes sense to fill your forward squadron. So I try to do this, and maybe the second and third division in line can have a ship less or not. Often the battle cruisers will operate independently and go to different sea areas. So maybe it's just better to keep them at 4 always. Battleships can be 5 or 4. That's fine. You also need to decide if you want uniform speed, because they don't go faster than the slowest ship. Same with armament and armor. But remember that the battle generator puts the bigger ships in front, so don't get cute and have your tanks be lighter than your glass cannons in the back if you want to do sort of a tank DPS mix. Also consider if you're playing on captain's mode or not, because on captain each division can operate independently, so you have much greater flexibility in who takes damage when and who gets pulled back, and you can more efficiently use their ammo spread across each division. But if you're on admiral or rare admiral, Don't forget you can swap the lead division of each force. So if you have a carrier, scout, and main, you can swap 3 times, 1 for each. So this is especially useful for your line of battle, I feel, because once the lead division has really gotten a pounding, you can switch it out for another lead that can now assume point, and it's not as damaged, and it's got more ammo left, and yeah, that's a good thing to do if you're not on captain. Very quickly look at my current TOSAs. They are oil-fired battleships with 16-inch guns. I just went all in. Used all my capacity. Fast-ish. Well, it's I did never fix this. 26 knots. So it's pretty fast, and it's pretty heavily armed, both in terms of primary armament. And 16-inch guns will make mincemeat of anything the enemy has. And my 24 SecBat 6 inches will eat up light cruisers and destroyers. I have anti-aircraft, lots of good stuff. And this is, by comparison, a contemporary enemy battleships. It is much, much smaller. It is worse in every way, and this 12-inch belt will just not stop 16-inch shell. Yeah, it will deflect some hits. Depends on angle and randomness and stuff, but overall it's not sufficient. While my 14.5-inch inclined slope deck narrow will definitely be able to tank a lot more of his hits. Plus I'm heavier, so I have more structure. So that's the thinking here. But these haven't reached the fleets yet, while the enemy has this ship in production, in fleet in quite a few big number, and they have another variant that's a few years older that's almost as capable. But this is definitely future-proof. It will be 10-15 years before they can match or exceed my my battleship, this Super Dreadnought generation, and by that time I will have something better waiting for them. It's the same with the battlecruiser Tsurugi. This is a very modern British battlecruiser, and it's 41,000 knots. It has this has an 11.5-inch belt. I have 12.5-inch belt. This probably has more deck armor, but I'm gonna close with it and kill it so it won't get to plunge through my deck. It has 9 guns, but it's all forward, and the AI typically suck at using all forward armament, so I would say that my 8 guns in 4 are superior to his 9 guns in 3, but that's just me. And yeah, being a battle cruiser is probably under armored. His turrets, they are maybe 12-13 inches, which won't stop these 16-inch guns, while mine have 16 inches. This one has 18 inches on the conning tower and the turrets. So this is not immune to gunfire or anything, but it is as well protected as I can make it. And 29 was the break point where speed just ate too much tonnage. I could make it go 30, but then I would have to add several thousand tons and many thousands in cost. Not worth it. But enough about battleships. It's time to wrap this up and get some playing done. And that concludes episode 46. While the year itself wasn't too eventful, I hope you found battleship design study interesting and informative. So thanks for watching, and see you again in the next one.